Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm just going to give another minute or two for any last attendants to join us. So just give 1 or 2 minutes and we'll start. There we go. Good morning, colleagues. It's good to see everyone or the names on the screen. I would just like to ask Babalwa, do we have quorum?
Good morning, sir. Yes, we do.
Thank you, Babalwa. Would it be possible for you to just share the agenda on the screen for us for a brief moment and also just send it on the committee's group? I'd appreciate that. There we go. Colleagues, so today we will be focusing on the briefing by the Civilian Secretariat for Police on compliance to the Domestic Violence Act and the police station census. Before we begin, I would like to hear whether we can continue to adopt the agenda. Schikkeling.
Good morning.
Schikkeling can't hear you. Colleagues, I take that as a yes, we can adopt the agenda as is. Then I would like to ask Babalwa, are there any apologies?
Yes, we received two apologies. Two apologies from Mr. Ghana. He won't be able to attend the meeting. And the minister, he indicated that he will leave the meeting early, around between 10:30 and 11.
Thank you very much. That's 100%. I would like us to, if it's okay, I would just like to say, sorry, I'm just reading on the notes here. Just in terms of adopting minutes, we'll do that just before we start with the presentation with the Secretariat. So I'm going to start with some brief opening remarks. Before I start with that, I must just mention I got extremely positive feedback last night from several of the cash in transit related security companies about the visit of the police minister and the deputy ministers yesterday with those entities. And it was very encouraging to hear the feedback. The general feeling was that there really is an openness to cooperate and work together and to collaborate in the fight against, especially these cash in transit gangs. So it was extremely positive. So I would just like to mention that specifically before I start, because I think it is noteworthy. It's the first time in years that we've heard such positive feedback from the cash in transit fraternity, if we could call it that. Members, I would like to start with a just brief opening remarks with regards to today's session. I think the first bit is that, domestic violence, as we all know, remains a very, very serious problem in South Africa, and it's really got devastating effects on individuals, families, and communities. And it's almost as though it's kind of like the discussion that we had earlier a few weeks ago about the top 30 stations. It's almost as though we very often have the same areas plagued with the same problem, and it's like we don't get to the bottom of it. It just keeps on dragging on. The South African Police Service, of course, plays a critical role in addressing domestic violence, and it's mandated to enforce the Domestic Violence Act of 1998. And this requires the police to respond to complaints of domestic violence, to assist victims, and to ensure their safety. I think very often it sometimes may lead to an unfair expectation too, because obviously a lot of domestic violence happens behind closed doors. But that being said, there's an important responsibility, even sometimes when it's reactive, to act accordingly by the police. And if they do, it could actually prevent future harm as well. In turn, the Civilian Secretariat for the Police monitors the implementation of the Domestic Violence Act by the South African Police Service. And this obviously aims to ensure that the South African Police Service adheres to its obligations under the Domestic Violence Act, and that victims of domestic violence receive the protection and support that they are entitled to. As part of this role, the Civilian Secretariat conducts a comprehensive police station census every 5 years to assess police stations' compliance levels to respective legislative frameworks and prescripts governing policing. In between the census period, the Secretariat tables a biannual compliance report in Parliament, and we are grateful to receive the presentation from the department, but the regression in compliance levels is concerning. Again, honourable members, you would have noted in the preparation or the prep documents, you would have seen that compliance remains a very serious challenge, and we must find a solution to this. And while domestic violence often happens behind closed doors, as I said earlier, which is difficult to police, it's not an excuse. The police's main responsibility in this regard is to support the brave victims of domestic violence who do come forward to report and investigate the criminal complaint. It's actually similar to extortion sometimes. It's almost extortion in a domestic sense. And when these victims do come forward to speak, it is absolutely critical that they get the support that they need because of the risk that they have to not only be re-victimized, but to also then face far more dire so-called consequences by the perpetrator. And too often these victims are unfortunately treated with a sense of disrespect or almost a lack of compassion at stations, as found in the relevant census and experiences that we've been shared with. And they are re-victimized and sometimes even shown away. And we must get to the bottom of this lack of following rules by officers. And I must emphasize here, I keep on referring to Philippi, and people keep on. I think it sounds like a broken record. But if we look at the Philippi Training Academy, the allegations and issues regarding these types of complaints are very serious. Again, this morning I received another report of what has happened over the years at the Pacific Academy, and yet the same people stay in service of the academy and there are no real consequences. Just in terms of laws, regulations, and national instructions, it's important that we emphasize that these are not mere suggestions. They are instructions that must be followed. And it's not the officer's prerogative to implement, it's their duty. The station commanders and relief commanders must face consequences when the officers under their command step out of line. I think it's too easy also sometimes to just say we follow up on the consequence to the officer, him or herself, but we need to follow up on who was meant to ensure that consequences were properly implemented. And over the past week, on another note, there have been several pressing police issues that have been in the spotlight in South Africa. One major concern, again, is obviously violent crime, and particularly related to gang-related violence. And this was followed by the recent mass shooting in Lusikisiki that we've mentioned several times, where the police have made positive contributions in the follow-up in investigations, extremely positive and successful. But unfortunately, in the Western Cape, there were several mass shootings and they've heightened public fear. These were mostly gang-related, and communities seem to be worried about the police's capability to respond effectively, and it's understandable. especially during the upcoming festive season. Now, in the Western Cape specifically, if you look at parts of the Cape Flats, we keep on hearing often that, you know, we're sending more boots on the ground, but boots on the ground doesn't resolve the issue. We need specialized investigative capacity, crime intelligence, etc., to be proactive. And then we can use boots on the ground to do those disruptive operations in order to dismantle these organized crime groups. Otherwise, the groups just adjust their modus operandi for a short while, the police leave the area, and they continue as per usual. There's widespread skepticism on the ability of SAPS to address the escalation of violent crime with regards to this example in the Western Cape with the gang violence, and due to the ongoing issues of limited resources. And, you know, sometimes I think the impression is given that that's the only reason, but unfortunately it's also because of corruption. Another significant issue is the lack of trust between communities and the police, which remains a critical obstacle in policing efforts. Years of police misconduct, including alleged cases of police brutality and corruption, have deepened this mistrust, especially in under-resourced areas where people often feel neglected by the authorities. Recently, Amnesty International and other organizations have called the government to address systemic issues within the SAPS, which they argue contribute to the recurrent violence and inadequate response during crises. The public fight between Major Generals Khan and Khumalo that we saw again in the newspapers this past weekend is case in point. And the allegations made against Major General Khan are very, very serious. It points to corruption and mismanagement, and most concerningly, police impunity. The list of high-ranking police officers publicly implicated in corruption and criminality is growing daily, and it seems that there has been very limited or no action being taken by the national management of the South African Police Service, which is concerning. And this is from top to bottom. Again, Philippi is case in point, where on the bottom, where police officers are being trained, everyone implicated in very serious corruption are still doing what they do at the college, still have access to bank accounts, to finances, and again, complaints being received in the past month of wasteful expenditure and deliberate theft. The committee has received a response from the Minister of Police on the appointment of Lieutenant General Mbotu of the Hawks, and I wish not to go into too much detail, and we eagerly await the outcome of the investigation by the Public Service Commission. I also would like to share the response later this week with the other committee members for us to discuss and work together on a way forward, and also engage with the team from the ministry. I reiterate the committee's BRRR recommendation that the SAPS must conduct a skills audit of senior management to ensure that leaders possess the competencies necessary to meet the current and future needs of the organization. I cannot stress this enough. And by assessing existing capabilities, SAPS really can foster a leadership team that is both agile and well-equipped to address the evolving challenges in policing. This would be a critical step in optimizing leadership effectiveness, promoting continuous development, and ensuring alignment with strategic objectives. We further recommend that regular lifestyle audits should be conducted on the senior management of the SAPS. We will request a project plan for the implementation of these two recommendations, and it will be implemented. We must restore the dignity of our police service. There are too many good men and women that put their lives on the line, and it's always so encouraging to see how many good cops fight so extremely hard despite circumstances to push back on crime. But we need to make sure that we've got an adequate and strong, dignified service from top to bottom to support the good members that really do so much. Debates continue around the potential devolution of policing powers to local governments. It's been a discussion. It's encouraging to see the cooperative agreements that have been signed. And I think it's such a positive step led by the Minister of Police to really pull in all the relevant resources and of how each one can complement each other and work together to change the trajectory of crime in the country. We also must add that there's a constant discussion about shifting more resources or help to be received from municipal authorities to assist with better community-driven responses, to strengthen those community-driven responses, and with regards to specifically local security issues. I must also then mention, and I'm almost going to conclude, that the murder case of 13-year-old Jerobane van Wyk by Daniel Smit in Klawe in South Africa has really marked an extremely disturbing case that was revealed recently when he pled guilty. In February 2022, I don't know if any one of the members noted this in the media, but Smit chased van Wyk and a friend after accusing them of taking fruit from his property. And the pursuit led to Smit actually hitting van Wyk with his vehicle. He took him back to his house. He ultimately then murdered him. It was very sick. He murdered him after making him a sandwich and giving him a cool drink. And then he actually claimed that he was influenced by occult practices. Smit was charged with multiple offenses, including murder, kidnapping, and defeating the ends of justice. And he has pleaded guilty to all charges, although he denies premeditation. This case has drawn national attention due to its brutal nature and Smith's claims of occult involvement, which he said influenced his actions. The community and the Western Cape courts now await the final sentencing, hoping for justice for Jerobane's family and closure for a very, very shaken community. Members, let's focus on the primary objectives of this meeting, addressing the critical issues of compliance and or non-compliance by the police service with the Domestic Violence Act. Our goal is not just to discuss the challenges, but to identify concrete, sustainable solutions that will ensure consistent adherence to the legislation, which is vital for the protection of vulnerable individuals and the effective handling of domestic violence cases. We know that the gaps in enforcement of the Domestic Violence Act can lead to severe consequences, affecting the safety and well-being of those impacted by domestic violence. Our discussion today should explore both the systemic and operational factors contributing to these gaps, from resource allocation and training for officers to accountability measures that reinforce the importance of compliance. We must create actionable strategies that not only support the police in meeting these standards, but also ensure that all victims of domestic violence receive the protection and justice they deserve. And I must add, in conclusion, that it would also be important to say that we need to ensure that police members enjoy the protection that they need and deserve when they have to take on domestic violence issues. Domestic violence is generally known as one of the most dangerous first response types of crimes that police officers face, because you never know what you might be confronted with when you arrive on such a scene. Colleagues, I would like to start. I would first of all like to ask whether the Minister of Police would like to say something. I see DM Boshielo. There we go. Minister Mtunu, would you like to say something briefly before I hand over to the Civilian Secretariat for their presentation?
Thank you very much, Chair. My greetings to the one Deputy Minister that is here, while another is representing us in the NCOP. Thank you for your remarks and this opportunity to say a few things. The first one that I want to say is that we got up this morning with very sad news in the Eastern Cape of two bad incidents. The first one being the murder of Nkosi Nogcinile Mtigaga in Mqhekezweni. Now, this is, we haven't received, we're still waiting for circumstances under which Nkosi was murdered as a female Nkosi. And of course, it's quite sad. And for now, it remains quite strange how she could have been murdered. It doesn't seem to have been on the road. It looks like it was at home. But we'll update you, Chair, and the Portfolio Committee as soon as we get more detail. At the same time, around 12 midnight, in the same area of Mkagizwen, in the Eastern Cape, still in OR district, 6 girls, matric girls, were raped by 2 men, apparently, in some accommodation that they are using in that area. And it's sad news. We will, depending on the reports that we get as we get into the matter, we may have to try to find our way that side to look at things. Quite a number of villages in the Eastern Cape, unbeknown to us, that is villages around OR actually, are just on fire. That's what I'm getting into, because as you remember, no sooner had we dealt with Lusisi, which in itself had been quite on the radar for a lot, with occasional murders up until the murder of 18 people, subsequent arrests. And then you had Kumbu, which has been relatively quiet over years, honestly. There have been this and that around stock theft, but no such murders as they happened after CC and then PG followed. All of this, there is something running in terms of relatives turning against each other and all of that. But we're looking closely at the matter and we're in touch with Premier there and the police commissioner. Those are the 2 sad incidents. The next one is, yes, Chair, indeed, we've been trying to hold a meeting with the cash and transit companies for some time. And we did have one virtually, and we felt it wouldn't be productive if we go that way. Now that we had met, we then agreed to meet physically, and we did meet physically, and it was a good meeting. What we are focusing on there is to remove this thing called cash in transit. And I could see individual companies, their plans, both at proactive, preventive, and aftermath. They are quite concrete and talking to the situation. We were agreeing that whereas there's the existing memorandum, but it needs to be tightened up and we need to include a few other role players, but we will get there at some point. Well, on all other matters, as you were saying, things that are keeping us awake and things that we're all worried about, especially the one that we're dealing with, compliance, is on the victims of domestic violence, but domestic violence itself, not just the victims. It's quite a concern, honestly. And there are 3 things that I want to mention in relation to this, which makes this case, the nature of this crime, a crime around which not only SAPS can turn the tide, but we need other role players, and we've played our role in trying to get other role players on board. The first one is victims themselves. I've noted on a number of occasions that no sooner the case been opened, but it's not general, I'm saying it just happens regularly. They will change and say, I'm withdrawing the case against the victim. I don't know. Each case, when you come across it, is not convincing. It's a question of the victim saying, suddenly I have a news. Yeah, I'm withdrawing the case. There would be cash, there would be other people intervening on behalf of the perpetrator. but that's one teaser in the whole phenomenon. And the second one is the justice system is not yet talking to this situation completely. We're investigating right now a case in Umlazi where a perpetrator was caught and arrested and sent to justice system. For some reason, either on the or magistrate. I haven't received the written report from the commissioner in Tewini as I requested. It happened yesterday that the perpetrator got released and he went back and he raped this girl again, a young girl, a very young girl, I think 4 years or something, raped her again. Now, in such circumstances, you see that you need more than just the application of the law to the letter, even if there would have been weaknesses on the side of the investigating officer, which I'm yet still to determine. But a magistrate can't be technical about rape to the letter per se. Can rather say, okay, without breaking the law or deviating from the practice, this is what is needed, 1, 2, 3. But to simply release the perpetrator and we experience what we've experienced. But I'll report back once with clarity on the matter. But then the third element is other departments. I do see that other departments are not coming on board. Not really. We have had a meeting with the portfolio, with the Department of Social Development to say we need social workers in all police stations in the country in order to tackle in part this scourge. Police chairs, you know, they are not trained in assistance of victims of rape. Rather, they are trained to react in the form of criminality that would have happened. But if we were to go anywhere around this, you need an active department. You need a department that will say, we do intend putting social workers in police stations, and they will assist, but to constrain this and this so that we can see how the matter gets tackled. But if the advantage of the social worker is that he or she can study the communities around as a result of their training, what's happening in families or within families, as opposed to all of us reacting. And it's a burden that I don't see police succeeding. I'm not saying they shouldn't comply, especially on the preventive side and so on, and even on the aftermath. I'm not saying they shouldn't do their job in compliance, but I'm just saying, as a country, if we want a turnaround on this, I mean, look at the case of this Mozambican who raped a 6-year-old and then murdered her. There is just something that is out of being human on some of these male animals that we have marauding or pretending they are men who are around us and so on. But the call I'm making is that I think we need to find a way. Even the strategy, crime and violence strategy, it calls for the whole of government. But honestly, Chair, I don't know where you are seeing whole of government on GPV. I'm yet to see whole of government. But on the justice side, I think we have to work together, clamp down on this. There are these people called repeat offenders. and then on paroling, and then people go back and of course tightening in the process. But I'm aware we've got to optimize, like we did speak with CITs, that there are still gaps in the way in which we manage cases or prepare cases when they go to court, because ordinarily a cash in transit criminal who would have committed a similar crime before, and then when they commit another crime, similar crime, police, the investigating officers don't easily detect that this person is there, so that they mention it when bail arguments take place in court. And it's something that we have to clamp down on, so that the system itself just say to the IO, look, this is a repeat offender, so that it's part of the argument. So there are those small gaps that we identified, which we're going to tighten on to remove them from circulation, all of them. For now, let me stop there, Chair. I won't go to all the remarks that you made, except that they are valid, and we'll take them kindly, and we'll work on them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. Appreciated. Colleagues, I would like to ask Babalwa just to put the minutes of a previous meeting up for us for adoption before we move on to the presentation. Otherwise, we have to come back to it again. If you just scroll to the top. Thanks, Babalwa. The specific minutes were for the session that we had where we considered the adoption of the committee report of the BRRRs for SAPS, IPID, the CSPS, CIRA, the DNA board, and the office of the DPCI judge. You would have all received it. Can we move to adopt the minutes? Honorable Schikkerling.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move for the adoption.
Thank you. Can we have a second, please?
I'm happy to second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kola Barnard. We can then move to adopt the report. Colleagues, I would like to hand over to the Secretariat for the presentation, and then we can engage in discussion afterwards.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Sibuya. It's good to see your name. I can't see your face, but I can see your name. Before you start, Mr. Sibuya, I just want to ask everyone, colleagues, I was asked by media at Parliament the other day that if any of the members or anyone on the meeting does speak, to please remember to switch on your camera. Yeah, just a reminder. Sorry for the interruption. Please go ahead with the presentation.
Thanks, Chair. Greetings to you and members and honorable members of the committee, the Minister Umatungwana, the Deputy Minister Mebushielo, and senior managers from CSPS. Chair, with your permission, I'll quickly ask Mr. Amaru to take us through the presentation. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson, Minister, honorable members, DM, and Secretary. Just to indicate that it's Ms. Matlangu who will be taking us through the presentation. Through you, Chairperson.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, the Minister, the Deputy Minister. I will be presenting the domestic violence biannual report as well as the census monitoring report. Honorable Chair, let me indicate that we have one presentation that contains the two reports. If I can take you through the presentation format, I will briefly give an introduction, the objectives of the report, the scope, touch on the non-compliance by SAPS members, and the members as offenders of domestic violence, members who have been reported as victims, and then move on to the Census DVA report, provide a conclusion as well as recommendations. Just to give a brief introduction, Honorable Chairperson, the Domestic Violence Act places several obligations on members of the SAPS, and if the members do not act as obligated by the Domestic Violence Act, then their action or omission become a misconduct, as per Section 18(4)(a) of the DVA, and the members are therefore supposed to be subjected to disciplinary proceedings, or an application for exemption needs to be submitted to the Civilian Secretariat for Police. Now, also in terms of the CSPS Act, we are mandated to monitor the implementation of the Domestic Violence Act and also make recommendations to the SAPS where there are matters of or areas of non-compliance. Now, in us undertaking this legislative mandate, we visit police stations where we then monitor or assess whether SAPS is complying with the Domestic Violence Act. I will start with the first report, which is the biannual report. In terms of the scope of the report, let me indicate that this particular report is based on information or data that was collected from the SAPS or provided by the SAPS. The report does not cover data that was collected by the Civilian Secretariat ourselves, because at the period we were busy with the police station census. Hence, the report is only based on
Sorry for the interruption, Ms. Matlangu. I see Reverend Meshwe has his hand up. Sorry for that. Yes, Honorable Meshwe, please go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, Chairperson. I want to know if the slides are frozen or it's only on my side, because from the beginning it has been on slide 1 and no movement. So is it just on my side, or is it what the presenter has on her side also?
I think it should be adjusted now. Sorry, I was following it on another document, on an external document. There's another hand up that says Samsung. I'm not sure who that is. Please go ahead.
Chair, Honorable Chair, it says Samsung. It's not saying Mr. Davis Kosana.
No, hi, Honorable Sosana. No, it says Samsung SM something something.
I'm sorry, I'll fix that up, but that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Sosana. Ms. Mklango, sorry for the interruption. Please continue.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I would request Mr. Dwaba to go to slide 7, please. Honorable Chair, slide 7 is on the non-compliance report that is based on the SAPS report. For the period of October 2023 to March 2024, there were 59 cases of non-compliance that were recorded. And we can see that the highest, or the province with the highest number of cases is Free State with 23, followed by the Western Cape with 20 cases. So it's only 4 provinces that recorded non-compliance cases. We can move to the next slide, please. Slide 8 shows the categories of non-compliances by the SAPS members. The slide shows that most of the non-compliances are on the failure to complete the SAPS 508A form, as well as the SAPS 508B register. And this is the type of non-compliance that it's often referred to as administrative non-compliance. We can also see that there was 9 cases of failure to serve a protection order, as well as an incident where there was failure to report an incident of domestic violence. Honorable Chair, I would like to bring to your attention that in the previous slide, on slide 7, we indicated that there were 59 cases of non-compliance. However, you will see that there's a discrepancy on slide 8 where we are reporting the members who have been implicated being 62. The reason being that there are in 2 provinces there are members who have transgressed more than once, or the transgressions are more than one. Hence, there is a higher number there of 62 members. We can move to slide 9. On slide 9, we have the departmental steps that are taken and the outcomes from the steps that are taken. We can see that most of the steps that were taken are remedial steps. So these are remedial steps that are taken after the initial interview with the implicated members. We also have 3 matters of written warning. Let me also indicate that during this particular time, there were no applications for exemption that were submitted by the SAPS. Moving on to slide 10. This is where we indicate the members.
Honorable Taibosh, yes.
Chairperson, I'm sorry. We're still stuck on slide number 7 on our computers. It's not moving up as per the speaker's presentation.
Ms. Mtlango, you can continue. Can we just please make sure that the slides go along with the discussion?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On slide 10, the slide on the members that have been reported as offenders of domestic violence. Here we can see that we
just give a brief moment. It's not on the screen at the moment.
Okay.
Is there any feedback? Why is it not on the screen? Why was it removed?
Chair, sorry, it looks like the computer we're moving the slides from, it's having a challenge. I'm just trying to get it projected from another computer. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sibuye. 100%. I see it's back on the screen. Let's try again. Ms. Mtlango, please continue.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Slide 10 shows that there were 232 members who were recorded as members, apologies, as offenders of domestic violence. And from these 232 members, there were 118 firearms that were seized from these particular members. Out of the 118 firearms, 9 of those firearms were private firearms that are owned by the members. There were 123 members that were not issued with official firearms. Hence, there are less number of firearms that were seized from the members. We can move to slide 11. On slide 11, we are indicating that.
Hold on, it hasn't moved to slide 11 yet. Sorry, give a second. Honorable Meshwe, please go ahead.
Chairperson, may I suggest that maybe Babalwa or Nicolette assist, because when they do the slides, they move normally with the speaker. So can they step in and help? Otherwise, we won't make progress.
I'm more than happy to do that. That's a good suggestion, Reverend. Let me ask Babalwa, are you able to share the presentation?
I'm trying to share from my side, Chair, but I'm experiencing some.
Colleagues, may I ask that we just take a 5-minute break until 9:50, until this is resolved, and then we continue at 9:50 sharp. Let me just see if it works now. Let's try one more time. Otherwise, break until 9:50. Is it working now?
Chair, can they
Yes,
stop
Honorable Chair.
There we go. It's moving.
Thank you,
Should be
Honorable
on.
Chair. We can move to slide number 11. On slide
we
number
go.
11, we are explaining that according to the Domestic Violence Act, if a firearm has been confiscated, whether it's from a SAPS member or an ordinary member of the community, there should always be a Section 102 inquiry in terms of the Firearms Control Act held. However, there was no mention by the SAPS whether the Section 102 inquiry was held. Chairperson, let me indicate that this report has already been discussed with the SAPS, and we have, together with the SAPS, indicated that the templates that are forwarded by the provinces to the national office, to the SAPS national office, will be amended to indicate that to show if the Section 102 inquiry has been effected or undertaken or not. So we will follow up on this particular matter. On slide 12, we have members as victims of domestic violence. This is the last slide for the DVA biannual report. Here we have 115 members from 66 police stations that are spread across 8 provinces except the Northwest. We are saying that this number is quite high, Honorable Chairperson. As you can see, Free State leading with 51 members. And we are also emphasizing the need for psychosocial services to be provided to all police officers that are involved. Honorable Chairperson, I will now move on to the DVA census report. Chairperson, as a form of background, let me indicate that when we do our regular monitoring of the Domestic Violence Act, we use various methods, methodologies to sample stations that we focus on an annual basis or biannually. However, after 5 years, a period of 5 years, or during the 5th year, we undertake a police station census where we collect data from all police stations. We held our first census, police station census during the 2018-19 financial year, and the second police station census was undertaken during the last financial year, which is 2023-2024. What we were doing between the two censuses was to ensure that the implementation of recommendations is being done. There were police stations that were found to be non-compliant or not fully compliant. There were implementation plans that were done together with those stations to ensure that there is a better level of compliance. We can move to slide number 14. To slide 15, my apologies. On slide 15, we're touching on the scope. As I indicated that this is a police station census, we collected data at 1,156 police stations. During the beginning of at the beginning of the project, we had 1,158 police stations in the country. However, we collected data at only 1,156 because the other two stations didn't have data or were not yet operational during the reference period of 1st July 2022 to 31st December 2022, which was our reference period. The census report covers the information on the compliance levels by police stations. We also report on how the SAPS has handled non-compliance. We also touch on the information on members who are perpetrators as well as those who are victims. We can move to slide 16. Chairperson, on slide 16, we have a number of the reported incidents as well as cases of domestic violence during the reference period, which is July to December 2022. So in the country, that is the spread of the incidents as well as cases of domestic violence. I'm not going to go into the numbers, but it's safe to say that most of the incidents were reported in the Western Cape, followed by Gauteng. We can go to the next slide. On slide 17, we have the status of reported cases. Honorable Chair, on this particular slide, we are reporting the cases that were opened during that particular time, as well as the cases that were withdrawn at court, the ones that were closed as undetected, closed as unfounded, the arrests that were made, as well as the convictions that were secured. As per the introduction of the minister earlier, he spoke about the withdrawal of cases, which is quite a challenge. We are no longer seeing cases that are withdrawn by police officers, domestic violence cases that are withdrawn by police officers at the police station level. We are seeing compliance with regard to this element where cases are withdrawn at court through the senior public prosecutor. However, the concern is that these cases are many. We have a total of 30,486 cases that were withdrawn at court out of the 81,386 total cases that were opened for that particular period. We can also see the convictions that were secured during that particular period. Let me also indicate that the convictions that were secured during this period are not necessarily from the cases that were opened during this particular period. We can move to slide 18. On slide 18, we have compliance levels. Now, when we assess the levels of compliance, we look at the following areas. Firstly, the availability of documents in the CSC as well as patrolling vehicles. We look at the completion of relevant incident forms and registers. Thirdly, we look at record keeping, the maintenance of registers and the proper filing of documents. We also look at the submission of relevant monthly returns. And lastly, we look at the availability and accessibility of victim-friendly rooms. We have 4 compliance levels. We have a scorecard that we use, and we have then 4 compliance levels. The first level being full compliance, which is 100%. The second one, significant compliance, is the rate between 70 and 99%. The partial compliance level is between 50 and 69%. And the last level, which is non-compliance, is any rate below 50%, which is 49% and below. Such police stations are regarded to be non-compliant. Now, we have found that there are 129 police stations that rated below 50%, which were found to be non-compliant with the Domestic Violence Act. And most of these stations are in KZN with 33, followed by the Eastern Cape and Limpopo with 30 police stations each. We can move to the next slide, Honorable Chair, where you will see a breakdown in terms of police stations, the number of police stations per province in terms of categories. We can see that most of the police stations were falling within the significant compliance category. That is just over 50% of the police stations, 589, were found to be significantly compliant. However, we didn't have any police station that is fully compliant. And as indicated, we have 129 police stations which were found to be non-compliant. We can move to the next slide. On slide 21, we looked at the availability of registers and forms, both at the CSC as well as the patrolling vehicles. And we can see that most of the documents and registers, prescribed documents and registers, were found to be available at most police stations. The only area that was identified as a challenge is the updated list of organizations. We found that stations have a list of organizations that are rendering assistance or can render assistance to victims of domestic violence. However, that list is supposed to be updated each and every 6 months, and that is not happening. And as a result, you find that a police station would refer a victim to a center, perhaps that is not closed, purely because that the list, the referral list, is not updated. So that is the area of concern that we observed. And with regard to the patrolling vehicles, we have also seen that a lot of the patrol vehicles in the police stations have documents, the relevant documents, that is the DVA Form 1, as well as the SAPS 508A, that enable now officers who attend crime scenes to be able to render assistance and document incidents on the spot when they are attending to complaints. On slide 22, we are indicating there that the stations that were not found with the relevant documents, especially in the patrol vehicles, you find that there is the documents are being misplaced as the drivers are changing shifts. And also there's also an element of negligence by members. Honorable Chair, let me indicate that each and every time we conduct a station visit, we have a debriefing session with the station commander. So these matters have also been raised or are constantly raised with the relevant station commander so that they can be corrected on the spot. We can go to slide 23. On slide 23, we have the inspections. These are inspections that are undertaken by the relief commander as well as the station commander. The relief commander undertaking the first level inspection, and the station commander the second level inspection. We can see that there is more compliance by the station commanders with regard to the second level inspections, as 1,048 police stations were found to be undertaking these inspections as compared to the first level inspections. And we have also observed that there are other inspections that are undertaken by the district as well as the provincial commissioners' offices at police stations. A total of 86 police stations indicated that they are also being inspected by other officers, which is a good practice. We have found that the lack of adherence to the prescriptions with regards to inspections it's due to lack of understanding as well as poor management by the commanders. And as I've indicated, this has been raised with the SAPS at different levels, including at the local police station level. We can go to the next slide. On slide 24, it's the serving of protection orders. Honorable Chair, we have found that not all interim protection orders were served by stations within the prescribed time frame of 24 hours. And the reasons that were given is the shortage of vehicles as well as personnel. And we also have identified a practice where in certain police stations, that particular responsibility being given solely to the domestic violence coordinator. And now it becomes overwhelming for one person to be able to serve all protection orders. And in certain instances, we find that the DV coordinator is also responsible for other areas. Now that also causes a delay in the serving of protection orders. The untraceable respondents are also another element, especially in the informal settlements. We find that there are interim protection orders that are being served within, let's say, 72 hours, even beyond that. Because of the respondents who are not traceable, and that now creates a different picture in terms of the turnaround time by the police. We can move to slide 25. On slide 25, we have a number of protection orders, interim protection orders that were received by police stations during the reference period, July to December 2022. A total of 75,306 protection orders were received. And on the right graph, we see the frequency of serving protection orders. We've already indicated that not all protection orders are being served within 24 hours. And we see others being served within 48 hours and even 72 hours and beyond. We can move to slide 26. On slide 26, it is now the filing of the protection orders. Protection orders, before they are being served, a copy needs to be filed together with the suspended warrant of arrest. And we have found that majority of stations have protection orders that are filed correctly. They are available. They were found to be available. and filed correctly in terms of the prescript in the National Instruction for Domestic Violence. We found that there are still police stations that are struggling to file these protection orders due to lack of communication between the local courts where the orders are being issued and the police station. You'll find that there are some interim protection orders that are being served through the office of the sheriff and not going through to the police station. And now it becomes a challenge when a victim now indicates that there is a breach, and now the police station, the local police station, not having a copy of the protection order. We can move to slide 27. Honorable Chair, on slide 27, we've got the cases of non-compliance by SAPS members. On this slide, we can see that a total of 56 members failed to comply with the Domestic Violence Act during the reference period, and the affected provinces are 5. It's Free State, Gauteng, KZ, and Limpopo, as well as the Western Cape. The category that was or that had more cases of non-compliance is the failure to complete to fully complete the SAPS 508A form, as well as the 508B register. As I indicated earlier, this is what is it falls under the category of administrative non-compliance. We have one incident of a failure to effect arrest where the protection order was breached. I will not get into all the numbers, Honorable Chairperson, but move to slide 28. On slide 28, we can see the departmental steps that were taken and the outcomes thereof. We can see that 17, which is most of the steps that were taken, were remedial steps. The remedial steps were taken against 17 members. There were 14 verbal warnings that were also issued. There was one case which was investigated and was still under investigation at the time when data was collected, where the matter was regarded to be serious. So all in all, it's 42 members out of the 56 that where disciplinary steps were taken against the members. As I indicated before, that this report has already been communicated with the SAPS, and we have also raised a concern where not all members or where disciplinary steps were not taken against all members, whereas there was no application for exemption that was submitted to the Civilian Secretariat. Chairperson, on slide 29, we have the availability of a designated interviewing space as well as the GBV desk. We found that there is 2.68% of stations that still do not have a victim-friendly room. However, these stations use some other space, a private space, for interviewing complainants of domestic violence. And mainly these would be your small and rural stations where office space is really a challenge. But in such cases, you'll find that there is an identified office which is normally used for interviewing victims of domestic violence when there is a need. We also found that there is a GBV desk at 86.33% of the police stations, and the remaining stations indicated the lack of knowledge and understanding when coming to the establishment of GBV GBV desks, as well as a shortage of personnel. I would also like to indicate that we have been in talks with the SAPS sometime, I think it was early last year. The standards for establishing GBV desks were finalized, and we are then hoping that when we go back to the stations, there will be much improvement in terms of implementing the GBV desk. Moving over to slide 30. We see the access to support services as well as sign language. On the support services, we can see that most of the police stations have access to social workers. They have access to health facilities and also access to shelter or a place of safety. However, there is still room for improvement, especially on the access for a shelter as well as a place of safety. With regard to sign language, we still have quite a number of police stations. Majority of the stations indicated that they do not have access to sign language interpretation. Now, if a police station, such a police station, receives a victim of domestic violence who use sign language, then they would then get in touch with relevant institutions around that policing precinct, or even ask for assistance from family members, the victim's family member, or ask the victim herself or himself to write down so that the victim can be understood. On slide 31, it is in exactly what I have indicated on slide 30. Just to add by saying that the police stations have a challenge of not having social workers available outside the official working hours, meaning you don't have social workers at police stations during weekends and also after office hours. And as Minister indicated, we would like to see more of these services being available and throughout. We can move to slide 32. On slide 32, we looked at the availability of female members in all shifts. And we found that there are still police stations where there is not a single member who's a female in all the shifts, and mainly in the rural areas. And the provinces that are mainly affected, there is the Eastern Cape as well as the Northern Cape. And we have also raised this with the SAPS to mention that whenever there are drives, the recruitment drives, this needs to be taken into consideration to ensure that victims of domestic violence feel free to be served by if their preference is to be served by a female officer, then that should happen. Moving on to slide 33, Honorable Chairperson, we have members as offenders and the victims of domestic violence. We can see that we had a total of 191 members who were recorded to be perpetrators of domestic violence. We have more members in Western Cape recorded in the Western Cape, and that goes actually for the perpetrators as well as the victims. And in total, we had 101 members who were recorded as victims of domestic violence during that particular reporting period. On slide 34, we have accessibility to employee health and wellness. Here we have stations that mentioned, a few stations that mentioned that they do not have access to employee health and wellness. These services, Honorable Chairperson, are not available at each and every police station. However, they are sort of centralized at district offices and police stations falling within a particular district know that they should be able to access the services at the district office. And we have also taken this matter up through our compliance forum with the relevant component within the SAPS to ensure that all police stations have access to employee health and wellness, and any member who needs such services, whether the member is an offender or a perpetrator, or the member is a victim, the services are available to all members. We can move to slide 35. On to slide 35, it's the training of members. Honorable Chairperson, we can see with the numbers, without going into the individual numbers, that quite a high number of members have been trained on domestic violence. Some have been trained during basic training. Some have received specialized or focused training on domestic violence. However, as much as a lot of members have been trained, we have identified that some of them could not really apply their knowledge, or could not display the knowledge specifically in the areas with regard to the referral by members for psychosocial support. They didn't know, some of the members didn't have knowledge in that particular area. They didn't know that they need to make means to ensure that complainants are assisted in a language that they prefer, the language that they understand. And we've also identified that they do not know that a complainant can sign, my apologies, can sign the occurrence book after information has been populated on the occurrence book. So these are the areas that we can point out, but in a nutshell, it shows that there should be, SAPS needs to strengthen the area of training. As I move towards the conclusion, just to show a comparative analysis between the two police station censuses that we have conducted, we have seen that during the 2018-19 census, there were 216 members who were non-compliant. My apologies. And during the current census, we had 56, which is a decline and a good sign that there is, in terms of individual members, there is an improved level of compliance. And during the 2018-19 census, the members as offenders were less, as well as the victim. The offenders were 132, and currently it's 191 members, which is an increase. And the victims were 66, and they have increased to 101. Honorable Chairperson, I've already spoken about the regression in terms of the compliance levels by police stations. In that during the 2018-19, we had 21 police stations that were fully compliant. However, currently we do not have any police station that is fully compliant. In conclusion, as we have indicated, that we are noting the regression during or when comparing the previous census with the current census. And we are also saying that we are commending the SAPS in instituting disciplinary action during the cases that were received between October 2023 and March 2024, and that is a positive step. We are concluding by saying that we view the refusal to open a case, in a serious manner, and that is a serious operational non-compliance, and SAPS needs to look into this particular area. We made about 5 high-level recommendations, Honorable Chair. The first recommendations is that stations need to be capacitated on the requirements and implications of non-compliance to the Domestic Violence Act. Secondly, SAPS visible policing should continue with capacity building at these stations regarding the requirements of administrative as well as operational non-compliance to the Domestic Violence Act. Thirdly, SAPS needs to initiate disciplinary proceedings for all members that are reported to be perpetrators of domestic violence. The fourth recommendation is that Section 102 inquiry should be conducted for all members whose firearms have been seized. And lastly, we are recommending that SAPS should strengthen the provision of psychosocial services to members who are reported as victims of domestic violence. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you so much for the detailed presentation. I don't know, Mr. Sibuye, would you like to say something before we continue with the discussion?
No, thanks, Chair. Just to indicate that we have now, because when we looked at the regression between the previous census and the current census, it just worried us. As a result, there was a discussion between ourselves and South African Police Service, in particular the National Commissioner, and we have established a team, a joint team that will look at all the recommendations and monitor compliance on an annual basis, so that when we do the census in the next coming 5 years, we don't regress further, but we monitor the implementation of the recommendations on an annual on a regular basis going forward. So that team is in existence and it's working on that. But we did not limit the recommendations to this census. We looking at all recommendations from 2016 to date, and continue to monitor the implementation thereof. So that relationship has improved, and we want to appreciate the cooperation in this regard. Thank you very much, Chair, and we submit.
Thank you very much for that. Honorable Skosana, your hand is up.
Honorable Chair.
There we go. Yes, Honorable Skosana.
Yes, I thought you would say Honorable Samson. I didn't see Tulani, I thought you say they must show, we must show them. Maybe it's not him. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Skosana. From members, we can now continue with the discussion regarding the presentation. Can I take, I'm not going to limit the time too much at the moment, but please keep comments, try and keep them brief. Also remember to switch on your camera when you speak. I'm going to start, let me see the first three hands. Let's do it in sets of three, if that's okay for now. Start with Honorable Kola Barnard, followed by Reverend Meshwe, followed by Honorable Schikkeling. See, Honorable Letlapa has also put up her hand. So let's take the first four then. Honorable Kola Barnard.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah, it seems to me we are as ever fighting with poor station management, lack of training, virtually no consequence management. To hear that for a country that makes so much of Women's Month, to hear that not a single police station is fully compliant in terms of the DVA law, it's left me quite shattered, I must admit. And comparing the rates, KZN is the 5th highest number of arrests for DV, yet the worst compliance. If one compares the two figures, it just speaks volumes. Now, probably the most horrific revelation coming out of the work of the Civilian Secretariat, and thank you, you do an amazing job, and it's really helpful to the committee coming with reports such as this one. What's horrific is you found a total of 186 members of SAPS who are reported as perpetrated of domestic violence over this period. And on top of that, only 78 firearms were confiscated. Some of them were personal firearms, but I'd like to know if the system was checked on how many personal firearms each of those officers has. Did they not have a second or a third or a fourth firearm still stashed at home? We've seen so many families destroyed because of this and being shot. And then to allow a person suspected of domestic violence to hang on to a firearm is just completely outrageous. But to see that some of them are booking firearms in and out at certain stations, even though they're involved in domestic violence cases against themselves, is absolutely unbelievable. So it would be very handy if you provided a list of the names of the stations where that is going on, so that this committee can do station visits and find out what on earth is going on. Additionally, it's of little value to the victims of domestic violence that the census shows a 9% decline in the confiscation of firearms from the perpetrators, indicating ongoing non-compliance with both the DVA and FCAs. It's as though we're going backwards, despite the fact that we have these huge celebrations and events during Women's Month. In terms of the second level inspections, it's terrible to hear that there's still a situation where, those are simply not being conducted by the station commanders. Again, it shows with commanders with non-adherence to regulations, negligence, poor management practices. Who on earth is appointing station commanders who can't actually do the job? It would be very interesting for your entity, the Civilian Secretariat, to do a review of how these commanders are appointed. Are they the top ranked interviewee? Did they get the best marks in exams? How are they appointed? Because over and over and over again, it's an issue. And yeah, out of 62.28% of police stations, only that they managed to serve the protection orders. I know personally of a woman who was slaughtered by a person because the police would not deliver the protection order because it was into an informal settlement. It happens regularly, and it is appalling that so few are actually delivered. And to hear that 25.51% actually went missing, they just disappeared, tells me that the perpetrators are bribing someone. It can't surely be total incompetence. And finally, I have to ask, how is it that volunteers are not, as a matter of procedure, vetted by the National Register of Sexual Offences? I mean, it's bad enough that a woman was invited into a police officer's office recently, only to have him lock the door and rape her right there in the station. But this is just setting the system up for the possibility of abuse. So surely that's against the law. So yeah, finally, maybe how is it possible that in this day and age there are SAP stations who have shifts with no females on duty? I'd like to know if we have insufficient women applying to be police officers, or is it simply, again, poor management, poor scheduling? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Kola Barnard. Honourable Reverend Meshwe.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and to the Secretariat. We are grateful for that presentation that was detailed. The first concern I must raise, obviously, is the regression in the police stations regarding domestic violence issues, the reporting and how they, in general, deal with it. While I understand that there are a number of members, they mentioned 115 members who are victims of domestic violence. Now, if police are victims of domestic violence themselves, how will they be effective in being peace officers in situations of domestic violence? And what measures are being done to ensure that police who are victims of domestic violence themselves receive psychological support? And if they do receive such psychological support, after what period? When a person, an officer, is suffering from this domestic violence, are they expected to continue serving and assisting other victims of domestic violence when they themselves need support? because if they are hurting, the temptation of them hurting others because they are acting out of hurt increases. So I want to know, when interventions are made, what predetermines that? Who decides when police who are victims of domestic violence need attention to ensure that they can fight this scourge in the community? Many times when protective orders are not served, obviously the police get the blame. But we heard today that there are protective orders that are served by the courts, and the police station in the area is not informed about the court that has ordered or that issued a protective order. Now, between the police station and the court, and I would think maybe it's the court that must take that responsibility of notifying the relevant police station about the police order they have served to ensure that they actually act on it and serve it on the necessary individual. One challenge, obviously, I heard the minister Kunu in the beginning sharing a kind of a frustration of what else or what more can the police do. You know, when we have this borderless situation, free movement of people within the continent, and people commit crimes. And we know they always do that. Illegal immigrants commit crimes. And then obviously, the question that is on the minds of the people is, what are the police doing? Okay, police arrest some people. After arresting them, no fingerprints, no DNA test can be done. So what do you do with such people? And the statistics show that crime is increasing. And multi-pronged approach that we always hear about does not always show fruits, does not always show desired results. Working together, that again we always hear about, between the courts, the justice, and the police. One has to see more of that, because the police arrest a person they know is dangerous, and then they say this person must not be given bail. We have heard of stories where detectives would plead, please don't give this person bail. And the courts ignore, give that person bail, and they go and commit the crime. We heard this morning again about a girl who was raped, a perpetrator, released to go and rape that 4-year-old girl again. I mean, this is totally disgusting. So my last question is, are the police doing enough to have meetings with justice? I mean, even the portfolio committees, they should maybe have meetings together so that they can share their frustrations. Police, you arrest, and then you say, don't release this person on bail. They go to court, the magistrate releases them, they go and commit the crime again. It's a cycle. Until when is this thing going to happen? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Reverend. Honorable Schikkerling.
Thank you so much, Chair. Chair, you know, it is concerning when we get reports like this. In the last quarter, from April 2024 to June 2024, murder amongst women increased with 8%, attempted murder with 16%, assault GBH with 7%, and children, it was 7% in murder, 20% in attempted murder, and 12% in assault GBH under children. And I mean, it is concerning when you look at the statistics and you get a report like this. And I would also like to thank the Civilian Secretariat for the report. But obviously, if you look at the report, it is very clear that there is definitely a problem with training and accountability. And I'd like to know what is being done to ensure that proper training is ongoing. I mean, if you look at the GBV desks and I mean, the lack of the GBV desks in some areas, a lack of knowledge and a lack of training. So why are we not ensuring that we are making sure that our detectives and our officers are completely to assist people like this? Which brings me to my other question is, and I'm incredibly concerned about the fact that almost 20% of police stations in the Northern Cape don't have female officers working. I mean, it's completely unacceptable. And I issue Honorable Kola Barnard's sentiment is there a lack of police officers, female police officers? Is it because they are not scheduled properly? What is the problem? Why are we not having female officers? Because it obviously must have an effect on the people that are coming in, if they are comfortable speaking to a police officer or not. And they cannot cite the fact that they don't have enough officers or whatever. Surely every police station can allocate one office or a specific safe space for people to go to that would like to go and report issues of GBV and domestic violence. It is a problem. And it seems to me that the lack is definitely in a lot of rural areas. But I do also believe that a lot of domestic violence takes place in rural areas because of the lack of proper policing and because they don't actually have anything to do in the area. So alcohol and drug abuse is very prevalent in those areas, which is a massive concern to me. I'm also really concerned about the members of the police corps that are offenders of domestic violence and that carry pistols and firearms. I mean, it is really scary. What are we doing to assist these members with regular mental health checks and psychological assistance? Because we regularly read about police officers in our country that either commit suicide or that just go and shoot their whole family. So what is the police services doing to assist these? And I know that we do have desks that assist these people, but if we ensure that our psychometric tests are done correctly and we have regular psychological checks on these officers, I'm sure it will mitigate a lot of these circumstances. And then, you know, the Minister Mkhunu has regularly spoken about social workers in police stations, which I think is incredibly important. And besides the fact that these social workers will be there to assist civilians that come in, it is also a concern to me. I mean, they could potentially help police officers that also do need assistance and that are not comfortable with perhaps speaking to somebody else. So I think it's important that social workers are placed as soon as possible. And then I'm really concerned about the cases that are withdrawn at court. I mean, I've sat through several court cases in the last while where almost 50 to 60% of the cases, not necessarily domestic violence, have been withdrawn. And I would like to know, are they withdrawn because of a lack of investigation? Is it because they don't have proper paperwork, or are they withdrawn by the complainant or the victim? Because we cannot have almost 50% of our cases being withdrawn, because that's, besides the fact that it's wasting time and money, we are definitely not offering the services, and these victims are definitely not getting the required service that they need and that they deserve. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Schikkerling. Honourable Lehlape, followed by Honourable Skosana, and then response from the Secretariat.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let's first welcome the report from the Civilian Secretariat. Chair, I think at this point, SAPS should have realized by now just how little capacity they have with regards to being able to deal with gender-based violence and domestic violence in particular. And with what the Minister mentioned earlier on with regards to departments and other committees not coming to the party, I think it is very concerning, because for us to be able to champion and to combat these crimes, we need the whole justice system to be intact. And if they are going to continue operating in silos, then it becomes very problematic. The fact that SAPS will have to arrest and then the courts will withdraw a case, and it just cuts on the chain, and we're not necessarily able to complete a whole cycle of combating crime. But it's also very triggering that we have to discuss domestic violence census report, because GBV and common assault were the most frequently reported form of domestic violence related crimes in the 2022-2023, particularly financial year, where sexual offenses increased by 1.7%, sexual assault increased by 4.2%. And with the NDP 2030 intending to ensure that South Africa becomes a safe space for women in particular, and we also make reference to the census report that we recently got, that women feel much more safer in drinking places or in taverns than in their own homes, which then makes us realize just how critical and how triggering domestic violence has become. And it has also been normalized in communities because of the lack of reporting of these cases, the lack of conviction of these cases, and so on. But Chair, what is also very triggering, or what is concerning, is that one of the reasons why they would propose to close dockets is that the cost of continuing with investigation would exceed the damage. And I find that very problematic, that you would close a docket because you think it's going to cost you more, where we now look at costs more than ensuring that we serve justice to the civilians. That is very concerning, and it is in one of the reports here. And that some of the dockets were proposed to close in 3 months of opening those cases. We know who the suspects are. So, the issue with domestic violence is that most of the time you are dealing with people who are well known. They are known by the family, they are known by the victims, they are known by the communities. And for dockets to be closed within 3 months of opening that case opens a can of worms itself, because we know also there's a trusting issue of police officers dealing with these cases, where they would speak and have access to suspects or perpetrators, and ultimately they would close these cases, or they will not even investigate these cases because it's people they know or people they've got access to. And so we need to also have a separate report of these cases, who were the people assigned to these cases, and maybe it should be dealt with on a separate level, on how these cases are closed, what were the reasons why they were closed, and who were the people who were in charge of these cases, who was given the responsibility to investigate these cases as well. We must also look, Chair, into unfounded cases where people would falsely accuse another person to serve a particular purpose. I think that should be described as a crime on its own, where a person can falsely accuse someone of a domestic violence or a sexual assault or whatever the case may be, and only at a later stage to realize that there was just some ulterior motives about it and not necessarily the truth into it. So we need to look into that we are actually violating people's integrities as well, and something must happen to those who falsely accuse, but also considering the fact that there would need to be a much more finer investigations into these cases. On compliance, I want to know how many police stations still use the manual system of recording and keeping information, where you'd get into a police station and you find stacks and stacks of paperwork that is not being recorded anywhere. It's not being put into the system. Whenever you need to make reference to a docket, you need to go to the manual system of checking information. And we also see that the non-compliant stations from provinces are these provinces that contribute more into the domestic violence cases, your Eastern Cape, KZN, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga as well. And maybe there is a need to look deep into it on why would there be provinces that need effort and focus that would need to be zoomed into in terms of contributing to the high rates of these particular cases, but still not comply to the national instructions and to being against the DVA. Because what is also alarming is that there is not a single police station at 100%. And maybe we should also be briefed on what could be the cause for this decline. What could be the reason why not a single police station? I think between 2022, 2023, and now, there was like a decline of 2 police stations at some point that were at 100%. And maybe we should get the reasons why you would not have, because we can't applaud the fact that we've got 500 or 400 police stations that are at 80% when we don't have a single one at 100%. I fail to understand why a police station would be non-compliant due to the fact that they are still grappling to understand administrative requirements and expectations, because these are basics of police officers. This should be the basic entrance of being a police officer. If you know you're going to deal with the administration of a police station, the station commanders have got a responsibility as well to ensure that they've got officers who are capable and capacitated enough to be doing this. So for a reason to be welcomed to say they are still trying to understand the requirements, it raises a lot of eyebrows. Also, to what exactly are we training these officers to do when they get into police stations? Because once you unleash a group of officers and say, we are now intaking this group as officers, the expectation from us and everyone else is that these people know exactly what they are going to be doing and dealing with in police stations. And maybe that we must also look into, as we review the curriculum, of course, look into exactly what we are training these police officers to do. And it should not be on how to handle a firearm, how to do this, but we must also get into the depth of how to run administration of police stations, how to take in cases, how to process them, and all of that. But with regards to the domestic violence cases as well, there is a great concern of police officers trying to interfere with the opening of cases where they would, out of their own provocative, try to sit down both the perpetrator and the victim down and say, no, this can be an issue that can be resolved at home, instead of assisting anyone who comes forth to ask to open a case. And maybe we must look into that, because there are a lot of cases where police officers would dismiss a case and say, just go home and resolve it, instead of doing what is expected of them. I think the general view after going through this report is that SAPS really needs to strengthen its consequence management measures as well. We've got a lot of officers who are not compliant with what is expected of them. And in most cases, they get away with it. There's a table in the report that says, that gives us a view of members as offenders as opposed to domestic offenders of domestic violence. And at the bottom of it, it says firearms, most of them, it says firearms were seized from members. We are dealing with domestic violence. People die, people get raped, people get assaulted on a daily basis. And most of the time also, it's police officers who do that as perpetrators. And the only thing that they would do is they were reprimanded, they were given warnings, and they seized firearms. What does that mean? What does it mean? Does it mean that now the police officer is now given another option or platform to go and look for another weapon that they can use against these people? And in most cases, they know that they do this and they are protected by their colleagues. When you get into police stations, once you mention another police officer's name, they immediately get aggressive, because there is a culture of protecting each other in these police stations. That is why it's so easy for them to continue contributing and becoming perpetrators of domestic violence. And you confiscate a firearm and then what? Because it can't be that you confiscate a firearm of a police officer and the person continues to do their work. That person already is a risk on his own. The fact that he attempted to do it the first time means that there is a possibility that they can repeat what they tried to do. So that also needs to be looked at. There's one issue that I also picked up in the report, where in one case a firearm was seized due to the fact that the complainant was a minor. I don't know how that can be a reason that can be put in a report, that a firearm, maybe we must get an explanation on what does that mean, that a firearm was seized because a complainant was a minor. I fail to understand that. But also what I want to raise, Chair, as I'm about to close, is the members as offenders cases that have increased. There is a need to have more stricter measures on members who are found to be offenders of domestic violence, especially looking at the fact that they have the cases have increased instead of decreasing. So clearly there is some, you know, mismanagement in terms of consequence management. With the issue of misplacement and negligence of members with regards to compliance, maybe we must also check what has been done to these police stations that have not complied, and reasons would be misplacement and negligence of members, and what measures has been put in place to ensure that this is rectified. What are the most common reasons also for administration of non-compliance outside of just misplacement and negligence? What has been put in place to make sure that in the next report, we don't have the same report that gives us these lame, I find them to be very lame excuses, that there could be much more measures that are put in place to make sure that we don't sit here and get to be given reasons that cannot be acceptable at all. And maybe we must also check from the Secretariat that what role can community organizations play in supporting police stations with their compliance. We know that we can find people in different communities that can come together on organized organizations that come together in assisting police stations to comply, to raise awareness, and ultimately ensure that police stations are up to date with regards to what is expected from them. I will stop there for now, Chair. Thanks very much.
Rolly Letlape, thank you. If that were me, my English would be finished for the day. Colleagues, as I've noted, Honourable Sosana, Honourable James, Honourable Muela. I would, although, just like to give an opportunity to the Secretariat first, because we've had quite a few comments, and then we'll come back to Honourable Sosana, James, and Muela. I hope that's okay. Mr. Sibuye, would you like to answer or indicate an answer from the Secretariat side as comment from in terms of the questions and comments raised by the members?
Thanks, Chair. I think the comments by members, most of them are comments that I think we must just take into account and be able to note and take forward for resolution and so forth. But you can see in the report that we did not only focus on cases reported, but we also report on incidences of GBV and F, which were not necessarily cases opened at the end of the day. We would like to, or we are following up on those as well, to say why will people go to police station and just report incidences and not necessarily proceed And we see that those incidents are also high. So we'll be looking at those as well going forward. Secondly, Chair, we on undetected cases, we are busy currently having a sector indicator which will involve all provinces to talk to what we call undetected cases, which are closed for variety of reasons or withdrawn for variety of reasons, to see what are the various reasons for such withdrawal, and whether the reasons were legitimate in law or not. So there is a project going on currently, which we are coordinating at a national level, which involves provinces, called court watching briefs. So where we analyze these dockets, and the analysis of the dockets would move beyond domestic violence cases. It will also include other cases. If I were to give an example, where in the Eastern Cape we have seen withdrawal of cases, and after the analysis of dockets, some of the cases were then re-enrolled and then proceeded with. In some cases, you also find conviction on those cases without any additional information. So we're looking at that. We want to strengthen this court watching brief, and all provinces actually to be engaged in the court watching brief. The saving of protection orders, it's a cause for concern as well. Obviously, there must be a strategy developed to ensure that we strengthen the saving of court watching the saving of interim protection orders, because if somebody is not served, then the anxiety of the victim remains high and so forth, and that victim will feel unprotected for as long as the perpetrator is wandering. So it's a matter we will continue to look at. Chair, the working together of government, it's very important. If we don't get all government departments to collaborate, and we will continue to have a challenge, because not one department can succeed in this instance. As a result, we are moving forward with the implementation of the integrated crime prevention and violence strategy, and the first pillar of that strategy is to get the criminal justice system to work together, to ensure that the Thuthuzela centers are working effectively, but to also ensure that there's a victim-friendly facilities in all stations, but also social workers to be made available at various police stations. And in this regard, the minister is leading the project to get departments working together. We've had the first discussion, which was led by the minister and the Minister of Social Development in relation to working together at this level. But that discussion then felt that we needed to have justice to be part of that discussion, and we're working on a collaborative effort, which may result in some form of a cooperation agreement with that. The minister is also leading the issue in relation to officers being victims of domestic violence in relation to the wellness program. And I think SAPS is doing something to that regard, and the minister is assisting in that regard. As I've said, Chair, the recommendations we have had here, it's high-level recommendations, and the report has a myriad of recommendations per category that we have worked on. And in that regard, we then said we cannot wait for 5 years, and then after 5 years we conduct another census and so forth. We need to deal with it, with these recommendations on regular basis as we move along. So a task team is working on those. We are developing implementation plans for the implementations of this recommendation. And I think the report will be ready in the next month to say this is the template, this is how we're going to monitor and so forth. But we agree that consequence management within subs have to be strengthened, and the capacity of detectives, just at the level of training, as well as understanding domestic violence, also need to be strengthened. But what is more challenging is that the number of detectives in the country is quite limited, and a detective has, at some point, you'll have a detective having 300 odd cases that the detective must be looked at. And we think this ratio, or the number of cases that the detective is facing, it's too high. Therefore, it needs to be, we need to strengthen the level, because if the detective does a high number of cases, it then means the quality of the work that will come from that particular detective becomes a challenge as well. Humanly, it may not be possible for a detective to. So that is also an issue we are looking at. Chair, with your permission, can I please ask Mr. Amaru and followed by Mr. Mashangu to assist with other comments or questions that members may have raised. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sibuya. Please do go ahead.
Mr. Amaru.
Thanks, Secretary. Maybe I will just reiterate what you indicated, that most of the issues that members have raised, we have noted them and considered them more as comments that will enhance our work and going forward. But maybe just to indicate that there was a question, I think, by Honorable Kolabanat in terms of the screening of the volunteers. So this is a matter that we've taken up with SAPS, and we can confirm now that SAPS is working on a draft, rather on a protocol with DSD. The draft is already in place in terms of how this matter will be dealt with going forward, so that we don't continue to have this kind of a situation. So that something has already been put in place in that regard. Then the one other issue that we tend to think that it's also contributing towards the issues of compliance. It's each and every police station has a person that we call the DV coordinator. So there are two challenges there that we have noted. The first challenge is the high turnover rate about them, which of course we have raised that there needs to be stability, because when a new person comes all the time, then it's like they're starting from scratch, and the issues of handover not managed properly. So it's one issue that we've noted and addressed with our colleagues from SAPS. But the second issue was in some police station, there is this thing of instead of all the members, the frontline members, attending to the issues, so they will rather reserve that or push that to the DV coordinator, who is, in most instances, it's one person. And if the person is now off duty, then there becomes a challenge because others are not actively involved. So, but it's an issue, as I've already indicated, that we have raised a concern about. The reasons for withdrawal of cases, whether it's maybe because of challenges with the police. Maybe one is to indicate that there are different reasons. Maybe one can indicate that there are cases where victims themselves will go and request that they be withdrawn. And I think that's the issue that Minister raised even earlier on, that we have that challenge. But we also have instances where the senior prosecutors are the ones who once they look at the matter or the docket, now they instruct the investigating officer that they need to go and seek withdrawal statements from the victims or those who the complainants. So which is one issue that we have noted. And of course there are instances where it might be the investigation is not yet completed, and then the court decide to withdraw it's provisionally. So we have such as some of the reasons why these cases are withdrawn. Then in terms of the seizing of firearms, the issue here is the FCA Firearms Control Act and requires, and even the Domestic Violence Act requires that once someone is identified as the perpetrator of domestic violence, that person, the firearm needs to be withdrawn from that person, be taken from that person. And then a Section 102 investigation will then have to be conducted to determine whether that person is fit to hold the firearms going forward. So that's what happens. So the person is identified as the perpetrator, then it gets seized. And if it's a SAPS member, then it means for the time when now his case will be attended to, he won't be issued with any firearms going forward. So, but if after Section 102 investigation, it is found that the member is still fit to hold the firearm, and once his case is dealt with, because the issue is you have incidents that are reported and you also have cases that are reported. So if there is a criminal case that have been opened, so it means that investigation will continue. But if it's just an incident, then there won't be investigation of a criminal matter. But the Section 102 investigation will still be conducted against such a member. There was a question about the issue about community members, maybe what can they assist. Yes, we agree that when there are community members who can assist with issues around awareness and other issues that they can deal with, the police will definitely welcome that. However, most of the incidents here on non-compliance is with regard to what we call administrative non-compliance, which members of the public or community cannot do much about. It's more about strengthening training and maybe even these remedial actions that SAPS have taken. But as the Secretariat, one of the issues that we do is we identify the stations where the challenges are more prevalent, and working with SAPS through what we call the compliance forum. We go there and make sure that these members are once again taken through these processes and guided and assisted for them to improve in terms of dealing with the registers. So I think that's what I can comment on or respond on. We'll check if Ms. Mahlangu still has any more input in that regard through you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaru. I would like to give a DM Boshielo an opportunity. And then after that, I'm going to go over to Honorable James and Honorable Muela. DM, please feel free to go ahead.
Thank you very much. I will not go if you have not given me the permission. Let me first greet you, Chair, and also greet the members of the Portfolio Committee and also our colleagues from the Civilian Secretariat as led by the DG Sui. Just to come on some of the questions that members have asked, Comrade Honorable Paula Bernard, in terms of the lack of training, actually, when they presented the report to us before we came here, is the issue that I raised sharply and even suggested that we must look at the curriculum of the police that so that in the next intake, we can be able to train them to do that. But I'm also told that after they pass out, they actually are allocated to police station and be taught how to deal with the issue of the dockets and what to do. I hope we'll be able to follow it up and make sure that that is done. So that concern was raised and we asked them to do that. And in terms of Reverend Mifwe, I fully agree with you on all the things that you said, the psychological support. Actually, on Friday, we're having a meeting with the HRM, Human Resource Management, for the whole day, just to go through to say what is the support that they are giving to our members, not in terms of only psychological but also in terms of their well-being, in terms of understanding where they come from and how can we intervene in terms of doing that. But also in terms of meeting, you are correct, Honorable Mishu. We arrest as police, like yesterday and day before when the National Commissioner was given report that we arrested almost 900,000. Yes, we arrest and make sure that we do that. But when it goes to court, they give people bail and they commit the same crime and come back again. So we have tried to meet with the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Review. We have raised our concern and apparently she said she will raise it with the NPA, but we have requested another meeting to be able to do that. I agree with you. We can't work in silos, but also we need healthy members to be able to help to help our communities. The other departments that were met, as said, the social development, we raised the issue of the social workers. They've not come back to us. I think it's a month or so. I think we'll also follow up. We met with the Department of Education and the Portfolio Committee. I agree with I think it's Reverend Misho who said there should be joint portfolio committees where we come in, because the select committee in the NCOP called both us and the Department of Education just to talk on the safety of learners at our schools. And it was a very constructive meeting. We also met with the Department of Communications so that we're able to improve our hotlines and also our communication generally. And Minister Malatsi Amase was very enthusiastic and was prepared to work with us. We met with the DPSA, the Department of Public Service and Administration, to say they must look at the accommodation of our officers, because where they stay, you would cry. You know, the barracks that they stay there would cry, and their families also. So we have to look at look after the person in totality, not necessarily on just looking at them. And we also met with the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure in terms of the police station. As you know, that we are not complying because Public Works is in charge of all the police stations. And as the story, as you know, I will not repeat, they are not coming on board. The other issue that we raised when the report was given to us is the withdrawal. We were concerned about the withdrawal, and we said they must go back and check and make us understand why they are withdrawing. I know some withdraw because of the intimidation, like Honorable Litlape has said. They stay with these people, they support them, and as a result, they are forced to go and withdraw. And then the other one, they are threatened with death, and then also economically they depend on them, and also some take the issue of children into consideration. And then the other one, as you know it well, is the issue of the budget. The Civilian Secretariat are given 26 million to do the imbisos and other things. So it might never be enough, and they will not be able to do that. And I think I've answered some of Honorable Shigling's questions as I was doing that. In terms of the rural, we agree with you, and the safe spaces, we agree with you. The suicide issue, that's why we say we are going to meet with the human resource to make sure that we deal with the issue. We met with the unions, POP crew and SAPU, and they raised the same issue in terms of their members, including in the triple SBC, the bargaining chamber. The issues were raised. Honorable Letlape, I think your suggestions are taken very seriously. We will be able to make sure that we rectify some of the issues. The issue of women, yes, we agree with you that we might be able to put in some, we did not understand actually, and we were asking some of these things. The thing is, we don't have time to blame. We just have to identify the problem that is there and then be able to solve it without actually pointing fingers. And in terms of the unfounded cases, I agree with you. While we must be able to do our work and arrest, but yes, in some cases, partners are bitter with each other in open cases. And we also will look at that matter. And yeah, I think is what I wanted to come up with, to say we also raise concern as they were giving us the report, and as the subs will sit down starting from this Friday to see how we deal with some of the issues. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, DM. I'm going to hand over to Honorable James, and then followed by Honorable Muela, and then by Honorable Skosana. Honorable James, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Good morning to all the members, Deputy Minister, and is the Minister still on the platform?
No, he requested to be excused at 10:30. Chair.
Okay. Oh, I thank you, DM. Now, when I look at the report and I listen to all the findings of the Secretariat, I can safely say that the department is guilty of secondary trauma to all these victims that they have failed, and this is as per the Children's Act and various other pieces of legislation. The lack of vehicles contributes to the ongoing GBV by placing victims at further risk when a SAPS member is not able to respond to a call of gender-based violence. Non-conducive working environments contributes to the lack of reporting, where members are faced to sit in an area where they know there's no privacy, where they know there's no victim-friendly room. That contributes to the lack and under-reporting that we see in SAPS. The lack of resources, such as detectives who investigate these cases, also contributes to people not reporting, also contributes to the many withdrawals that we see, because you find that you report a matter and no one ever gets back to you or follows up in terms of what is happening. No statements are taken because of lack of vehicles, because of lack of computers, non-conducive working environments, right? The general attitude of our SAPs, our men and women in blue, and I speak from experience. I often take a day or two every now and again when I'm at home in my community. I would go sit in at these police stations just to see how things are happening there. And you find that when a victim walks into the CSC, no one even gets up from their chair or the table where they're sitting at. They will communicate with the victim from where they're sitting, like maybe a meter or two, and ask the person, what is the problem? So the general attitude of our members, this contributes to this report as well. DM, I don't just always want to come onto this platform and complain about what is not working. And all the things that I'm referring to is also based on my most recent visit to KwaThemba police station. And I'm sure all the members by now, the DM, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that video that has actually gone viral. That is actually, it is not even shocking. I think it's disappointing to know that that community has been left to their own demise. There's no SAPS services happening. None of the SAPS members wanted to speak to me. And then we wonder why the mental health of these members are compromised. Would you like no electricity year in and year out, or members, or from Parliament or from National has visited, and I'm just referencing one police station, has visited the police station with absolutely no help coming to the rescue of those members as well as the community. I think that's an whole incident that should really have everyone bowing their heads. Like I said, I don't just want to speak, I can carry on. I want to also say, let us also come up with recommendations on how do we better this. I want to recommend for starters, how about we have a national day of all these SAPS members oath once again, because I think they've forgotten why they are in the system. Number two, someone spoke about partnerships with community NGOs. For the past, I think there were 3 consecutive years where us as NGOs and community activists would partner with our local police station. And whenever this would happen, usually over the festive season, the NGOs, we would actually have.
Honorable James, I think switch off your video if possible, just for bandwidth, because it every now and then it just glitches a little bit. Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's fine. Is that better, Chair?
Yeah, that's much better. Let's try again.
Okay, so what I want to encourage partnerships with community NGOs, because you find that when you have those community NGOs and there's a space given to them at the local SAPS, they then actually also assist with preparing these people for the cases. You have case withdrawals because people don't know what to expect at court. So when there's proper briefing and proper counseling of these victims that's meant to be done by SAPS, you also find that there's a better follow through of cases and there's a lessening of cases when you actually monitor this. The strengthening of communications by local SAPS. Every SAPS, every police station has a communications officer, but we see very little statements coming out from this communication officer. I want to propose that regular statements in terms of successes, in terms of arrests, even in terms of empowerment and educating the community stems from that office, because that is also how we build community trust. It actually shows the community that SAPS is working and they do have the interest of the community at heart. So it's strengthening of communications. It is looking at ways of partnering with NGOs. It is a recommitment of the oath that they have taken. And Minister, it is also consequence management. We, in all our reports, we see, I think it's shocking to find a report that says not even a single police station is conducive. Have 2 or 3 police stations in your high risk area and pilot with those areas and make with those police stations and make sure you use them as a pilot, where you can actually even have your drug test kits. At most of our stations, we don't have the drug test kits. We don't have the numbers of your SCS units. You don't have Form 36s that speaks to the removal of children, all of those things. There's also a national instruction that speaks to the responsibility of SAPS when social after hours, when social workers aren't there. SAPS is fully aware of what they ought to do when social workers has knocked off. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable James. Honorable Muela.
Thank you, Chair. And greetings to Honorable Deputy Ministers, the officials from the Civilian Secretariat, the officials from the Department of Police, honorable members. I think we've noted and we've seen the the presentation from the Civilian Secretariat, and we have also noted the recommendations which are looking on improving the justice system, most particularly on the police. I think the issue of the domestic violence, Chair, it's a very complex matter because it deals directly with socio-economic conditions of the people, most particularly in traditional communities where they still believe and have a trust in their traditional leaders, in Dunas, Maroshi, and all those things. Because if such matters happens, Chair, even if there is a docket or a case that is open, the best advice that they will give to the team is to say, you should then address the matter as a family, even if it's a perpetual vicious cycle of abuse. That's why we find ourselves having so many cases which at the end of the day, they are then withdrawn until such a case where it leads to murder and all those things. Our society still needs a serious community involvement or some sort of an awareness. Yes, we are agreeing that the budget that is given to the Civil Secretariat to deal with some sort of community awareness campaigns is very little. And our people, indeed, they still need that particular awareness and the seriousness of the vicious gender-based violence, most particularly on the level of domestic violence. This particular matter, Chair, escalate also into the officials. We have seen recently at Sophia Town, we had a 23-year-old who has taken his life, and he has noted the abuse that is receiving from senior officials in a police station. This will show or indicate the level at which the mental wellness of also the officers who are dealing with these cases, it is very much imperative. So as part of recommendations, they said that the social workers will also be a priority in police stations, not only to deal with the victims, but also to deal with the officers themselves, because they themselves, they have to be mentally fit. And that to a certain extent, they should also prioritize looking at psychologists, which will also assist, because some of the matters are beyond the social work scope of work. They also need serious mental intervention so that we'll have people who are sound to deal with these particular cases. But the recommendations are very clear, and we believe if they can be well monitored as they are indicating, it will then lead to a better result that will make our police station, especially the service that to the people to improve to the better. You know very well, Chair, that the police training that they are receiving recently is only to investigate and make arrests, to combat crime, which leaves too much loopholes, most particularly with issues of how to handle such cases of gender-based violence and domestic violence. So we therefore welcome these recommendations, and we believe they will come a long way in fixing some of the issues that we are coming across within our societies, in our precinct, in our police stations, and it will improve them to the better. So that will be my submission, Chair. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honorable Muela, Honorable Skosana, and then Honorable Schikkeling.
Samsung is acting up. Can Honorable Sheng comes in, then I'll come after him. I'm trying to sort out my Samsung. Chair. Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair. Hello. Honorable Chair.
There we go, Honorable Skosana. I can hear you. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened.
Sorry, my Samsung is acting up. Can Honorable comes in while I'm sorting out my Samsung here?
100%, Honorable Schikkeling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a follow-up question. I'd just like to know if the victim-friendly rooms in the police stations are open 24 hours a day, and if they are all manned 24 hours a day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Schikkeling. I'm going to hand over again to Mr. Sibuye to just coordinate the answers to the comments or questions. Colleagues, I'm still going to give an opportunity if Honorable Skosana's connection is sorted out, then he can go again after the next round of answers. And then I'm going to start wrapping up. We can obviously take this discussion further. I would like to recommend, especially on quite a few of the points made by Honorable Kola Barnard and Honorable Lehlape, and also so to the rest, that we can also then ask the relevant entities of the police or divisions of the police for a session where we can work through a lot of these points. Honorable, yes, Honorable Adams.
I've indicated in the inbox that I can't seem to wave. I've been trying to get your attention. I'm sorry to do it this way, man. I have some input. Thank you.
100%. Please go ahead, Honorable Adams. You're more than welcome.
Chairperson, with regards to what's going on, I think anything that anyone says right now is just going to be a repeat and a rehash of what's been said before. I 100% agree with Honorable Kola Barnard. I 100% agree with the Honorable James that it's a mess. It's a total mess. And it's unfortunately congested and concentrated. GBV is concentrated in the poorer areas where drug abuse and alcohol is rife. And that is where SAPS falls in. But we need to look at the preventative measures also. And I'll tell you what's of a genuine concern to me. In the NCC, we had a councillor. It only came to our attention afterwards that this man had been accused of rape and prostitution. Charges were withdrawn. In that same time, two women accused him of gender-based violence. One of them accused him of recording her performing a sexual act and threatening to release it. He was called into a hearing. The hearing found him guilty and his membership was revoked. This man resurfaces in the office of the Mayor of the City of Cape Town. In the time that this disciplinary hearing is running, women are sending us emails about allegations made against the same man. These emails are forwarded to the Mayor. Months later, this man He threatens the same thing with the councillor to release her pictures, and he does it on social media. The councillor lays a charge at work. The disciplinary hearing finds him guilty. This man is given a final warning. This poor councillor now has to turn to the courts for a protection order against this man. The same courts have put this thing back. I think they've postponed it twice. That's how serious gender-based violence is taken. Now, for all the failings of SAPS, we need to look at the failings around us. How can people in power employ people like this around our women? Some of us are raising daughters out here. This is a sickness, and it must come to an end. Now, we can have all the talks and the workshops that we want to, but until there's an appetite, a proper appetite to end this, I'm sorry, it doesn't end. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Adams. Honorable Skosana, how's your Samsung doing? Not there yet. Mr. Sibuya, if there's something that you would like to add or to finish off with, DM Boshielo, you're also more than welcome. I think we should start concluding. I think a lot of points were made that all of us can chew on. I agree that we can carry on for hours, and I don't think it's necessarily going to become more constructive. There we go, Honorable Skosana. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chair. I hope my Samsung now you can see me. I hope you can see me on my Samsung.
We can hear you on your Samsung. You're more than welcome to continue.
Honorable Chair, I think it's
Honorable Skosana, the sound is going. I think you can switch off your camera just for bandwidth sake.
I know that there's no time, but I must say that sometimes, no problem. Do you hear me now?
We can hear you. I think you can switch off. Yeah, there we go. That's better. We're listening.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, what I was saying is that the police can do as much, as possible, as they themselves are facing their own personal issues as well. The issue of gender-based violence, if you remember, in the past administration, we had states about this, and indeed, it's going to take not necessarily the police alone. You need both the police and you need other departments. You need other departments as well, like the social development. The traditional leaders, the faith-based leaders, because these domestic issues as well starts from our society, starts from our own houses. So for us, we'll only read states yearly and for many years to come. If you remember very, very well, in that second quarter now, as we speak, the state we have, you had almost 10,500 rapes already, but already you had almost 1,500 attempted murders, and you had 14,000 assault against women. Though I don't see against men, because obviously for me as well, not that men are not involved in these things. Some men as well are feeling the pinch. They are being assaulted by women, but we know that it's not as high as women. But we have to face the fact that these things need the collaboration, like Sibuya has said as well, that it won't help for us to only rely on the police, that the police should resolve our problems. It needs an entire nation to be behind the police, because we know that we've got a shortage of police. We have a shortage of police station. Budgets are cut. And indeed, I'm going to plead to the minister once again that the issue of the VIP protection service has to be looked and reviewed, because you can't have the budget. I know that it involves salaries, it involves motor vehicles, but I think we can do better, to cut that budget for us to help other as well components of the police, not necessarily But in all sphere of the police, we need to capacitate and help the men and women in our uniform, because really we're gonna complain here and yearly, we're gonna come here and talk about these issues, but at the end of the day, these issues are not stopping. We'll always read statistics about them. So for me, I think it will be helpful as well to perhaps have some, I don't want to say imbeciles, but for us to have the society, to encourage the society to have, to address these matters, as well from homes, before the police, because there's a lot of things which make this to increase, the social problems, as I said, unemployment. There's many factors. There's no excuse for anyone to commit gender-based violence because of all the things I'm saying here. But indeed, they can contribute. As you see as well, some police, because of stress, they are taking their own lives. That tells you that it's not only a problem of few individuals, it's a societal problem, it's a community problem. We have to find ways and to capacitate our police, because I can tell you, if I can tell you the police stations I've visited, I'll say out of 10, you get almost 2 which are better resourced, and those 2 most likely in my case are those one in a better place in a suburban area. But I can tell you there's a lot to be addressed, and I think the minister and other ministers in other departments, we need to collaborate. This alone as a police service, we are not going to be able to resolve these issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Sosana. Honourable Sibuye, would you like to? Sibuye, sound confused this morning, Mr. Sibuye. Would you like to say something?
I'll be happy to become an honourable.
But you are honourable. We can still track on.
Thanks a lot, Chair. I think the latest comments made assist, but the observation as well is that we may need as well subs to respond to some of the issues that have been raised as well. But as a matter of emphasis, Chair, is that the whole issue around the training curriculum and so forth, the moment we have the national policy approved, which is a guideline towards the relooking of that, I think that will help us towards the professionalization of the police as well. But secondly, Chair, there's an issue around the budget that has been raised, in particular the CSPS budget. I think I agree with the honourable members in this regard. We have done an analysis of our budget, and I don't need to go back to the history of Civilian Secretariat in terms of its position in government for a number of years, which has been treated as a cost center. Only now that it's becoming more and more visible, more and more proactive in terms of doing its work or its mandate, but its baseline budget remains a huge constraint. And so forth. So it may be that that particular matter be looked at. We have developed a document that is currently under discussion internally that looks at the resourcing of Civilian Secretariat, not necessarily more on salaries, but more on core program. That we need to start strengthening and so forth. Yes, as we strengthen core programs, we may need to relook at, or we are relooking at the organizational structure, because we may need people as well in relation to that, and investment in technology in relation to deal with issues around complaints and so forth, and processing of some of the work that we do that is digitized and so forth. So those are the things that we are actually looking at. So this is to say, Chair, or to emphasize on the points honorable members have made in relation to the budget. But that does not only end with us. We have done the analysis of the entire country in terms of provincial secretariats as well in provinces. And there is also a huge challenge of capacity in provinces. Some provinces have not formally established civilian secretariat. In some provinces, it's just a desk. And we have put together a task team nationally led by our corporate services person and finance to look at the provinces and to make specific recommendations or input in relation to the fully functional establishment of civilian secretariat in provinces, so that there is impact in the work that we do, both nationally and in provinces and so forth. So that work is ongoing, but I think if we are to succeed, we have to be deliberate about capacitating the civilian secretariat across the country. I think that is the input that I wanted to make. Mr. Amaro, if you have anything to add based on the latest comments, please, you can do so. And to just confirm that what DM Bushielo have said, Chair, it's quite correct, and they've directed us to relook at all the matters that she has raised in this report, and we are focusing on those matters as well. Thanks a lot, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mr. Sibuye. Colleagues, I'm going to conclude. Mr. Romaro, if there's something critical you would like to add, you're welcome. Would you like to have an opportunity?
Yes, I wanted to indicate there was a question about whether VFRs are open for 24 hours. Just to indicate that they are accessible for 24 hours, but in the evenings, the services will differ from one station to the other. So for bigger stations, you will find that you will have social workers who are on standby, who can be called to come and assist, even the volunteers. But in some stations, you find that once it's in the evening, you're going to get limited service. The frontline police officers will still be able to interview the complainant or the victim in the VFR, but then send them to other centers where, like to Zelake centers, where they can be assisted or sent to the health care facilities. So the answer is limited service over 24 hours, but there are those where you will still have full service by the volunteers who will be called in to come and assist. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Romaru. Colleagues, I'm going to conclude there for the day. I think we'll see everyone in the plenary this afternoon. Thank you for everyone's input today. I think out of the discussion, we will have to engage in a further session with the South African Police Service regarding the specific points and questions that have been raised by the members.
Chair,
and,
before you close.
Yes,
Chair?
Honorable Skosana.
Hello?
Yes.
I'm sorry to do that, Chair, but I wanted to ask. I've just heard Mr. Sibuyi saying that in other provinces we still have a desk. My question would be, do we still, in 30 years, having not the secretariat in other provinces? Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure whether I heard him well, but I heard that he says in other provinces there's only a desk. Thank you, Chair.
No problem, Honorable Skosana. Mr. Sibuye, would you like to answer that quickly?
Chair, that is precisely what is happening, is that you will find that in a province there is a secretariat, but it's just with no full capacity. It's just a desk, and that is even with no budget and so forth. And so those are the things that we're grappling with, because provinces do not prioritize civilian secretariat. As you will know, that even nationally, Secretariat has been a cost center under SAPS for many years, and so forth. So that development is happening, but we will need provinces to really consider establishing Secretariat fully functional and so forth. So yes, that is the. And we can give a breakdown of province by province, even the capacity of province by province to the portfolio committee if required. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Chair. Thank you very, very much, at least I'm answered. And indeed, Chair, I think we have to visit that again. It's unacceptable that after 30 years, we have provinces which don't have a full secretariat. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Swasana. Colleagues, I'm going to conclude there. Thank you for everyone's comments. We will see you next week and see the members this afternoon. Thank you.
Chairperson.
Honorable Adams.
I would just like to just go back to something that was said in the beginning of this meeting, Chairperson. If you will indulge me for 1 minute, maybe less. You mentioned the war between General Kamalo and General Khan. I've spoken to members, people who suffered because of the hijack, the kidnappings in the Western Cape. And these people speak glowingly of General Khan. Now, I don't have an opinion of General Khan, but I'm told that family members would be dead if it wasn't for this man who went above and beyond. The fact that General Khan's unit has been hamstrung by General Kamalo, it makes me wonder. But I'll take you a little bit further where my concerns go. I'm not a judge, and we will leave the case before the courts to the judge. But General Khan appears to have stopped the trafficking of 750 million rands worth of drugs into this country. And he's being persecuted for it, and we have to ask why 3 years later. We have to ask, why is this man being brought before an expeditious disciplinary committee? Is it because that the decision to fire him has been made already? I'm asking. But my big problem in all of this is that yesterday, and I will read you the case numbers, I laid 3 cases against 3 generals because of what appears to be evidence before me, but we will leave it to the investigator. And I will read the case numbers for the members of SAPS to forward to the minister. They read as such: 1650/10/2024. 1651.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. You can send those case numbers and we will send them to the minister's office.
I happily will, but I have to ask a question. Is there war in SAPS between people linked with people? And are they going after the people that are working for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Adams. I want to caution you to be careful with this. There are larger forces at play with regard to the investigation. That's why I didn't zoom in on it too much. All of the members mentioned in this past weekend's case, and as we previously discussed, there are many investigations going on. I think we should give it a chance. I'll give you a call this afternoon. And
Thank you, Chair.
Chat a little bit. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.
Close the meeting. Thank you.